My name is Mindy, and my husband Jeremy and I, we wanted to have children very badly, and it was a struggle for us. It turned out that it wasn't, that we just get to decide on the timing, so it took a lot of interventions with doctors and time, and after more than a year of trying, we were expecting my daughter Kylie. The pregnancy was pretty good. I didn't have gestational diabetes or anything. I was borderline with the tests. And we had a healthy girl, though she came 3.5 weeks early. Well, then I had it in my head that I, want my perfect little family. I wanted 3 or 4 children. I wanted them to be 2.5 years or 2 years apart. So timing-wise, expecting the same amount of struggle that we'd had to get pregnant the first time, we started trying earlier. It did still take us several months, and about 13 weeks into that pregnancy, I miscarried. And I thought, I was so close to the mark about being home free, because I thought the only risk was miscarriage in the first trimester. Then after a few more months of trying, we were blessed enough to be expecting again. We were very excited. Our daughter Kylie, who by this point was 3, was also very excited. And when we got past the first trimester, I breathed a sigh of relief. Everything else went the same as it had with Kylie. We just had regular doctor's appointments. And about a month before she was born, our C-section had already been scheduled for the normal end of pregnancy time period, which was a medical requirement for me to have a C-section. And I started noticing contractions about 3.5 weeks before I was to have the C-section. I called my doctor's office, and they said, how many have you had? And I'd been tracking them, and I said, I've had 13 in an hour. And they actually said, the nurse said to me, oh, if it's not 14, don't worry about it. The next day I went to work, and I noticed decreased movement, and I was worried about her. I had a gut feeling that just didn't feel right, so I called my doctor's office again when I left work that day and told them, and they told me to go home, lay on my left side in a dark room, and count every movement I felt. No matter how slight, I was told, no matter how slight the movement, count it. If you think, was that a movement? Count it. So of course, I was able to get to 10, which was what they told me that meant I was fine. That night, I dreamt that she was gone. So I woke up about 6 o'clock the next morning, which happened to be a Saturday, February 28th, 2009, and I called the doctor's office. And because it was a doctor that was on call, they said, well, honey, come on in then. Come on in and we'll put a Doppler on you and you'll feel better. Well, when I got there and they put a Doppler on, they couldn't find anything. So they went and got an ultrasound tech who came in and did an ultrasound, and she was already gone. Now, I did not understand what happened. I didn't know stillbirth existed. I thought that was something that happened in the 1800s, and my whole life changed. You can't think straight. You blame yourself. It was a nightmare. It was a whirlwind. It's a blur. It's still hard to even imagine the reality of that time. But I certainly decided I was not having any more children. I could not go through that again. I couldn't feel that way again. So we buried my daughter Abby, and we had a full autopsy because I needed to know what happened so that I could maybe take some of the blame off myself, because I felt like it had to be me. Everybody kept telling me, it's not you, you didn't do anything. But I was apologizing to everybody. My mother-in-law and father-in-law got to the hospital, my husband, my parents, everybody. All I could say was, I'm sorry. Because even though everybody else thankfully didn't blame me, I sure did, because who else was responsible for this? I knew something was wrong. They told me it wasn't, and I believed them. That's one lesson I would say. If there's anything I would do differently, I absolutely would tell moms, you get to make the choice. If they don't listen to you, find someone else that will listen to you, because you're right. You know what's best for your baby. It's just up to me to take care of her, and I didn't. That's how it felt at the time. I've learned a lot since then, and I'm upset that I didn't learn some of that beforehand. So what I have done by being involved with the Star Legacy Foundation is, and the reason I picked them is I wanted data, because nobody gave me an explanation, even with an autopsy, of what happened to her. They couldn't give me an explanation, and that was not okay. That is not okay with me. Something happened, and I needed to know why. One thing I have learned since is that it could possibly have been related to the cord. It wasn't a cord around the neck or a knot, but it was perhaps the seatbelt effect of the cord being draped over her shoulder. I remember that was the case when she was delivered. And I had had hiccups. The baby had had hiccups when I was expecting. And at the time, and I know a lot of pregnant women who do this, the baby has hiccups and your belly is jumping and everybody thinks that's cute. Hiccups aren't cute. They are a cord compression. So it doesn't mean, I mean, they're also pretty normal and common, but if it happens, you should tell your doctor. Just mention it to them so that they know it and they note it somewhere. So that's something I always tell somebody that's expecting. On Abby's first, what would have been her first birthday, I came up with the idea of doing a run-walk event to raise awareness for this, because I learned there is so few people that know about this. Actually, that's not true. There's a lot of people who know about it. There are very few people who talk about it for many reasons. Nobody likes to talk about a baby who has died because that's a horrendous thought. And yes, it is horrendous, but it doesn't make it not true. It happens every 20 minutes, just in the United States. And if you go outside the United States and you go into less advanced areas, it's way more common. And every 20 minutes is pretty common. So the fact that it happens that much, we should be talking about it, because if we talk about it, we can do something about it. If you look at other diseases and or even childhood diseases, like, or not diseases, SIDS, for example, death of a child in the first year of life, the occurrence of that was very high. They started putting research and time and money and attention and talking about it out there, and all of a sudden the rate dropped, and thank God it did. And the same thing with all different types of cancer, right? The more we talk about them and the more the people are donating to get research about things, the more they can help on it, and the survival rates are increasing. The occurrences of stillbirth, that's not the case, because everybody's like, shh, that makes people uncomfortable. You don't want to talk about that. Even family members did that. I saw a lot of that. And it is unbelievable to me, because I'm not going to be quiet. The only thing I get to do for Abby, the only way I get to be her mom, is to stand up and say she existed. That I totally believe she can change the world, and I believe she is changing the world. She would be 6 right now, and she would be in 1st grade, and I did not forget that. So my life is definitely segregated into before this happened and after this happened. It certainly gives you a different perspective on things. Thankfully, it helped, well, it has hopefully helping other people to be aware. I mentioned earlier that my husband and I had decided we were not having any more children. We couldn't go through that. Again, I couldn't go through that kind of a loss. I didn't want to do that to my family, to my daughter Kylie. And yet, God decided, with the opposite of effort, we wound up pregnant again. And I had a baby that was due almost exactly 1 year after Abby. And it was the most horrifying, scary pregnancy ever. You lose the ability to have a blissful pregnancy, because you're not just like, oh, a kick. You're like, how many kicks am I feeling? You know, you're nervous. But I am blessed, and I'm happy to say that Tucker joined us. He's my rainbow baby. Kylie will tell you that she's the sunshine, Abby was the rain, and Tucker is our rainbow. So I hope that my kids learn from this, and that we can show an example of maybe how to do something with something terrible. It was the only event in my life that ever shook my faith. At the time, I could not understand how there could possibly be a plan that this would make sense in. And now, I don't know that I'd say I 100% feel like that was the plan. I'm still not okay with having lost her. but I do feel like we're doing something with it. And if I had to tell women the things that I've learned from this, one, as a mom or a dad, grandparents, anybody, if somebody isn't listening to you and you have concerns, very often with the babies that are lost, the parents had concerns, they had a feeling. Feel it, believe it, make them listen to you. If they don't want to, you may feel insecure and like, oh, they must know better, they're the professional. They're not, you're the parent. You can stand up and say, no, you need to listen to me, you need to check me. I need you to do that. The hiccups, like I mentioned, please tell your doctor if the baby has hiccups. Sleep on your left side, something that simple to tell that all OBs could be telling pregnant women during their pregnancy. I don't think that women would run out of a room screaming if they learned that stillbirth existed. So I think that information is power. So if doctors or lawmakers talk about this instead of hiding it and sweeping it under a rug, we can actually reduce the number very significantly, very quickly. Another thing I was told was that babies slow down at the end of a pregnancy, and a medical professional told me that. When I said, you know, she isn't moving as much, they said, well, that's very normal, you know, hon, there's not as much room in there as they grow, there's not as much room in there. That's not true. Babies get stronger, so they move more at the end of a pregnancy. So if it slows down, tell your doctor. I'm hearing a lot about a 39-week rule. I am very distraught about that for a lot of reasons. I've done a lot of research on it myself. None of my children, the two living or Abigail, had made it to 39 weeks, and none of them would have made it to 39 weeks. And the two that are here, because that we were able to get them delivered safely, are great and they're fine. And I'm not saying that it isn't ideal to have a baby go full term, but I think it's really reckless to say you have to. If you have concerns or if you have any of, you know, these 5 symptoms, you shouldn't say, but you're not 39 weeks, so, because that would be blood on your hands, and I don't think anybody can deal with that. And I think that we have the technology nowadays with all kinds of wireless technology and like a heart rate monitor or a wireless app on a phone. I think that we could be monitoring pregnancies in the 3rd trimester that would have whatever threshold a doctor identifies as appropriate for a particular mom, so that it's almost like a real-time biophysical profile or a non-stress test that high-risk moms go through, like I did with Tucker. I was monitored very carefully on that pregnancy, I can guarantee you. But wirelessly, they could give that care to everybody. That wouldn't cost any huge dollar amount for insurance companies, and it would give peace of mind. And it could be like ADT on your house, where if there's any breach of whatever the tolerance of acceptable is, your doctor's office would be notified. It doesn't even have to be something that like tells the mom something's off, because you don't want to scare them to think that there's always a problem, but it just gives information to doctor's offices. I think that would save so many babies, and we clearly have the technology to do it because we do similar things in other health arenas. So I've been really lucky that my family has been very supportive. My husband has been wonderful. My kids are great. My parents, my sisters, my brother-in-laws, my nieces and nephews, they all walk around in shirts like this that says Abby's Run, and this is her actual hand and footprint. And if you can see the back of my shirt quick, this is my favorite one to wear. Can you read it? It says Abby's Mom, because I am very proud to be Abby's mom, and I like to hear people say her name, because like I mentioned earlier, she was real. I have always believed that she can change the world. That is what I am trying to do by being involved in this project and with the Star Legacy Foundation. We need to talk about this.
Do you want to show the picture?
Yes.
Have it a button under your chin. You want to show the, I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
Can you see the whole thing?
I can. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a family picture that we had this past summer, and this is, you know, my parents and my sister's families. This is my family. So this is Kylie and this is Tucker. And please notice right here Do you see the orb next to my kids? I really, truly believe that that's Abby. She showed up for this family picture, so I've never had anything printed and put up on canvas ever. This one hangs in my house on canvas and always will, because I finally have a family picture with all 3 of my kids. Thank you.